another one, could I tell you? All right, folks, do we need to go beyond literacy and reset our education system for national productivity? Well, that's the question. Professor of International Business at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Densil Williams, shares his thoughts with us this morning. Morning, Professor. Welcome to Smile.
Thank you. Morning to your viewers as well.
Yeah, man. Obviously, we're not here to blame anyone because we want to find solutions. But having said that, how can you end up in high school and at the end of high school and you still can't read and write? I mean, as I said, we're not looking to point no finger, but how you escape through the system?
You know, that's a very good observation, Neville Daly, because, in my time, when you started high school, if you're not able to pass your subjects at first form, you can't transition. And you were stuck at first form for a good time. Today, what you find is that people are just going through the system and they end up at fifth form, they graduate, have a school leaving certificate, and basic literacy they don't have. They can't read, they can't write, they can't do simple mathematics, as you sort of the PISA examination would have revealed. So my argument was to really look at the ideas that have been put forward by one of our very respected global intellectual, Professor Don Robotham. And by the way, just an editorial, the article did say he fails too. And it should really, he never fails to inject new life into discussion. But the idea is that Don was saying, well, we need to get to more literacy and numeracy in order to improve productivity. And while that is true, my argument was a little bit further than that. I was asking him to expand the thesis to say literacy and numeracy are very important because you need to be able to learn to read and write. But in today's day and age, when we're talking about the fifth industrial revolution, just being literate and numerate will not get you very far. You now have to talk about other higher order skills. And those kinds of skills, the truth is that you're not getting them from just going to primary school and secondary school. You're getting them from actually interacting at the tertiary level. So the idea is that more people in Jamaica really need to go to tertiary institutions and not just primary, secondary. Because the truth is that we almost have universal coverage in primary school. Almost every child who wants to go to primary school goes to primary school. But the problem you have is that you come out and you're just literate and numerate, but you can't interact in the global economy. And that alone is not going to be sufficient for you to get the, the bigger jobs and to also get the get the kind of networks that you need to start your own business and stuff. Because when you leave high school, for example, I've always said to people, we don't train a physicist in high school. We don't train an economist in high school. We really just provide you with the basics for you to go beyond that. And so what we really need in Jamaica if we're going to improve productivity is for people to have a larger mass of people to be educated at a higher level where they can deal with complex issues. And that is part of the issue that we face.
So I wanted to get back to that, Professor, because I find that sometimes we see literacy and numeracy as the basic identification of numbers and letters.
Yes.
But I feel that literacy and numeracy are foundations of comprehension.
Absolutely.
Like when we hear people trying to engage in conversations or understanding life,
yes.
if you struggle with literacy and numeracy, you really can't have a good grasp of comprehension.
Well, in essence, that is really where Don was going. Don was basically making exactly that point, that in order for you to move to the higher order skill, critical thinking, comprehension, problem solving, get into complex issues.
Which are survival.
Yeah, you need to now have that basic foundation.
Yes.
But as you said, the way we think about numeracy and literacy is just identify. So you're able to identify a paragraph or you're able to identify some numbers, but you must be able to make sense of them. Mm-hmm. So literacy and numeracy is now saying you're making sense of a paragraph. So you read a paragraph, and as a 12 or 13-year-old, you should be able to say, what exactly is this paragraph saying?
Right.
So you're starting to build on that foundation now so that you can deal with higher order issues. And that is really where we're struggling. But building on that foundation, you're going to have to get more people now at the higher level who have those skills and competencies to be able to transfer those to the people at the lower level. And as a result of that, as I said, you really need to have more people at your tertiary sector. Because one of the pieces of data that I identified, for example, is that in countries that we normally talk about well-developed and, moving to developed status, like a Singapore, South Korea, those countries, if you look at them, you will find that 8 out of every 10 students who leave secondary school move on to some level of post-secondary education, university and polytechnics and stuff. 8 out of every 10. In our country, we have 2 out of every 10, roughly about 3 out of every 10. Just 7 people are always there just at the basic level. And if you have these people at the base, so many people at the basic level, the truth is that the kind of issues we talk about to improve productivity is not going to happen, because we're just going to continue to produce, basic stuff. And basic stuff is not going to give you the high wage that we're looking for, the high growth and stuff. So we're going to always struggle with most of our people on minimum wages.
Yeah. It's interesting what Delia said, because I read many years ago that the problem with math is English, because they just can't comprehend, as Delia said. I want to go back to something that you've been saying about getting to the tertiary level, but how you get there when you can't read?
Yeah.
How you get there if you can't read?
Right. So you need to fix the foundation.
Right. But how?
Well,
and it's interesting what you said, and I actually agree with you as someone who's coached at the high school level for many years. You see some of the kids just moving up. So it's almost like you come in and say, well, I went and teach from page 1 to page 2, whether you get it or not, you're there on your own. Right. And tomorrow I go to page 3, page 4, not knowing or not realizing that, and if I get page 1, I'll know. So how you fix that, Prof?
It's a very interesting observation, Neville, because the truth is that the way we normally look at things like early childhood education is that, okay, there's a little person who thinks that they want to make a contribution to the community. They set up a little school behind their house, and you invite the students to go there, and they do read the Bible, and they read a few little texts, and they say they can read, and they move them through the system. We need to take a more scientific approach to it, and that is why I really applaud the work of the Early Childhood Commission. I think Professor Maureen Sands-Vaughan was one of the early architects of that. But it's an important commission, because what it does, it is now formalizing the way we do preschool. And preschool, as you know, is going to lay the foundation for everything that is to come. There's a piece of research that they normally quote that everything you really need to learn in life is between 0 to 5, somewhere around there, either 3 or 5. I don't remember the exact number, but so in the early stages. And that is why the preschool ages is so important, because that preschool is where you're going to lay the basic foundation for you to do everything. So that preschool level, a lot of attention needs to be paid there. What the Early Childhood Commission is now doing is to say, hey, let us formalize the way that we do early childhood education, because before, to be honest, it was never a formal structure at all. So half of these early childhood institutions could not even get accredited from basic accreditation bodies, because they were never formalized. So yes, we need to build that foundation, but my argument goes beyond that now. Having built that foundation and getting people ready for an economy that is really so complex, that really requires much bigger skill sets than what you would gain from just being numerate and literate, you now have to get more people transitioning through the system. And so how do we do that? One, we have to start thinking about, okay, getting the foundation right. Having had the foundation right, we now get the people to a certain level that they can matriculate into higher other institutions, but we also have to finance them. Because it doesn't make sense to see that you have a majority of students leaving high school and secondary school and do very well, can read and write, but they cannot access tertiary education. One of the things that actually struck me just a few years ago, I recall reading something where this young man had about 12 or 13 CXC, CAPE, and all in high level, and was not able to access medicine at the UWI. And the only reason he couldn't afford it. And we looked at it, a few of my friends and I, we said, but we tell the kids, do well in school and you can achieve your dream in life. And then he comes to this stage, wants to be a medical doctor, cannot afford it. And we said, no, something has to be done about it. And luckily, through the support of Scotiabank at the time and a few others, the child was able to get into UWI. But that's an exception. You don't want that to be the case. You want the norm to be, having done well, you can matriculate. Mm-hmm. And so we have to think about how we now improve access at that level as well.
Yeah, so many things to talk about.
Quick answer. Teaching have anything to do with this?
Yes. The way you teach, importantly, affects the way people learn. And that is one of the reasons why you talk about mathematics, for example. In the first stage, most people have a block towards mathematics because the first thing they hear is hard. But if you get the right math teacher, math becomes the most interesting and the most fun-loving thing you could ever do. So the way you teach actually has a way to motivate people to want to learn.
You see us coming out of this sooner than later?
To be fair, a lot has been going on in the education sector, and it gives hope. As you know, Dr. Stokes, Adrian Stokes, is heading a committee called ETOC, Education Transformation Oversight Committee. There is the Orlando Patterson report and the Ray Davis report before, etc., made a plethora of recommendations to how we improve the sector. This last report has about 365 recommendations. The last update ETOC gave was that they are about 1/3 in the implementation of those recommendations. About a little over 100 are now in implementation phase, and of that 100, over 97 of them, I think, are on target. So that gives you hope that things are happening in that space. The question is, how do we need to accelerate it so that we can have a greater take-up of this?
All right. Thanks, sir. Good to see you, sir. Professor of International Business at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Professor Densil Williams.
After the break, why farmers should be on alert for beet armyworms.
If you want it on my belly. I'm out of line.